Major funding for these broadcasts is made possible by grants from Chase Commercial Term Lending and New York Community Bank, M&T Bank, Perfect Building Maintenance, Capital One Bank, the Witkoff Group, Greenberg Traurig, Genova Burns. Additional funding is provided by grants from AKA Hotels, Korman Communities, Aerial Property Advisors, AVR Realty Company, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, Bank Leumi USA, Briarwood Organization, CBRE, Citizens Bank, Colliers International NYC, CPEX Real Estate Services, Cushman & Wakefield, Customers Bank, DDG, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Fisher Brothers, First Nationwide Title Agency, Flushing Bank, Foley and Lardner, Friedman, Handler Real Estate Organization, HAP Investment Developers, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, James Orphanides, Chairman USRealty.com, Kilroy Architectural Windows, New York's Window Company, Madison Realty Capital, Massey-Knackle Realty Services, Matone Group, Mercantile Commerce Bank, N.A., Meridian Capital Group, Newmark Grubb Knight Frank, Newbanks, MHP Real Estate Services, Optimum Window Manufacturing Corp., People's United Bank, Rosewood Realty Group, SJP Properties, Sterling National Bank, Sterling Risk, Stonehenge Partners, TD Bank, Terra CRG, the Continuum Company, the CUNY TV Foundation, the Moynihan Group, and these friends.
All I see in the city is cranes. I walk anywhere, I see these little sites over here with cranes. I must be crazy. Maybe it's the erector set in me. So what's going on? All this cranes, all this construction, all this development, lots of things are happening throughout the city and New Jersey. So today I've assembled this group, a very eclectic group of developers, counselors, and bankers to provide their insight on crane, or massive development taking place in the metropolitan area. My guest today includes Bruce Eichner, who is the chairman and CEO of the Continuum Company, who is building with cranes two major developments. Larry Korman, who is the co-CEO of Korman Communities, president of AKA Hotel and Suites, who's also building a couple of things and also converting. Brian Cohen, who's a partner at Foley and Lardner. You're not building, but you're advising these people. And last but not least, the only way you can build is you have to have the guy with the money. So I have Ben Stacks, who is the market manager for the metropolitan region for Capital One Bank. So since I know you got one project, is 200. How much is these two developments going to cost?
Oh, approximately $700 million.
I was going to bet that. Okay, so $700 million. That's a lot of shekels, as one would say. You know.
It's a lot of shekels.
You know, are we worried, okay, with a massive amount of new developments, or as I said, I have my crystal apple over here. Are we, is it cautious optimism? I mean, do you think some guys are going to make it and some guys aren't? You remember 2008 was not too many years ago, Bruce.
I think to the extent that we are looking at three things. We're looking at pricing for acquisitions of land of $1,000 a foot, which is a very difficult number to absorb. The second thing we're looking at...
It's just an extra zero, right?
It's an extra zero, but somebody has to put up most of that zero. I think the second thing we're looking at is a substantial increase in supply. So the projection for 2014 was approximately 2,500 units for new condominiums in Manhattan and in approximately 45 projects. The projection for 2015 is approximately 6,200 condominiums in approximately 120 projects. Of the 120 projects, approximately 50 are conversions and approximately 70 are new construction. For 2016, you're looking at approximately 100 projects totaling approximately 6,700 units. So 6,700 and 6,200 is nigh on 13,000.
Yeah, but if I had a residential broker here, which, as I said, I normally don't because they're too exuberant about the market, they'd say in the city of New York for 13,000 units to be absorbed, a couple of Russians, a couple of Chinese, it wouldn't be difficult, but it's not that easy, and I understand with you. Larry, you have, in my opinion, the best suite hotels around, and now you're converting. Why are you converting some of these, and you're also building in Lower Manhattan?
It's a select, exclusive amount that we're going to add to each property, and the reason is to, one, take the offering to the next level, to justify improving the kitchens, bathrooms, adding new common areas. It's also a way in which to compete with other developers to buy the next level up of residential buildings. You have to have that justification for your financial partner to be able to absorb the higher costs associated with the newer, better properties.
I think, a number of years ago, there were properties being converted. There's a hotel, Lombardi.
Yep.
The Lombardi Hotel is a hotel, but it's really people owning the apartments, and then they put it in the pool. Is that going to be?
Well, it's individuals from around the world, what we call global citizen, who wants to own a slice of New York City, own a slice of AK, have the lifestyle, have the services of a hotel, but enjoy the privacy of a condominium, the space, the size, and have the access that AK offers all over the world. Yeah.
Okay, so those things are now going to be coming into your competition also. I mean, he may be at a lower price.
It's a different type of offering than a traditional condominium
situation, but it's in the numbers. You may have not even calculated what he's doing or what other people are doing with conversions today.
I think that I did not include, I'm talking about apartment house conversions.
Okay.
But there's one other statistic that's significant, and that is of the approximately 70 projects that are for new construction that are coming on the market in New York, less than 5 are at $2,000 a foot.
Or less.
Or less.
Right.
So
there are 14 that are more than $3,000.
I think this is an affordability issue, quite frankly. And it's not just the condo market, it's the residential.
Aren't you involved with that unique affordable condo?
Which one?
On First Avenue?
The which?
The Sutton?
Not
too far.
For
Toll
Brothers, yes, we are.
Okay. Which has a very interesting situation that there are, I'm not sure the percentage, maybe 20%. 20% of the units in this building, which is being constructed on First Avenue between 53rd and 52nd and 53rd Street
Are affordable.
Are affordable. And these are permanently affordable condos that somebody's going to be able to move into this building based on income bands, similar to the 80-20 that you have in the residential apartments in Harlem, that these people are going to be able to buy an apartment over there for as low as $500 a foot.
Sure.
And what's the benefit is that the other people who are buying at the market rate are going to have a 20-year tax abatement, 10 years with no taxes and 10 years without. You as the counselor, when people come to you, how do you, like Bruce said, the money price per foot, and like we were talking before in the green room about the construction costs, how do you tell somebody who's a developer what to do?
So much of the development right now is trending toward the higher end, to the toward the other 95% of these units being built are trending toward
Manhattan.
the higher end. Well, even outside Manhattan, in Brooklyn and in Long Island City, there's so much. There may be so much demand, but the only thing that makes sense is to build toward the higher end.
Because people need those numbers to justify the sellouts.
Exactly. So what's been happening is people need the numbers to justify the sellouts, and what they're doing is they're stretching the numbers. And one of the things we were speaking about earlier is they're looking at other ways to monetize off of the asset. So one driver is to look at the value in the retail. to the extent that there's an opportunity to also monetize off the retail or to monetize off of other accessory uses to the property. But primarily when, for example, I represent many sponsors who are also developers, and then I also represent a number of people who are making private equity investments in these, and oftentimes it may be their first or second time venturing into the real estate space. So then you have to think through all of the economics and all of the fundamentals, including who is your sponsor, who is the lender, how is this going to be built, and the timing in the marketplace. How quick can they get their shovel in the ground?
But with regard to that, you're the banker. How are you, and you're a conservative banker like I am. How do you look at this? That there are new banks in town who are taking risks. Okay, they may be coming from the Midwest, like the Ozarks. Okay, or other institutions, or maybe they're Spanish lenders who say, I want to put out money over here. Because
it's as they say, location. For us, it's sponsorship, and sponsorship. I mean, there's no doubt about the fact that we're getting into a very crowded market at this point. We're absolutely looking for people that have the wherewithal to not only build these things, but to withstand a lot of different market conditions. And so, well, no, I mean, I think it's and so. It's an interesting part in the cycle, too, where, a lot of the New York banks or, banks that are committed to New York have been here for a long time, did a lot of stuff the last few years. You're starting to see a lot of the, kind of traditional old line New York banks take a step back or get full on construction or say, look, we're not going to do as much construction as we did last year because we were worried about the, the volumes.
Yes, Brian.
I was just going to say, following what you said, when we were coming out of the last cycle, when we were sort of coming into recovery, so many bankers who were in construction lending, they would only lend to the people who they knew and who they had success with for a series of cycles. And now while that's loosening, I don't see it loosening that much.
That's true.
But as we were saying before, there are, there's the private equity funds and the mortgage REITs, the Starwoods, the Blackstone, and other people like that who have money, who are going to put it out because sometimes you lend at a high rate of return or you don't mind owning the property that some people have done over the years, in this situation. But Bruce made a great comment in the green room about some of these developments that were planned, that didn't come to fruition. They were planned in 2006, 2007, 2008, and they were sold in 2012. If you look at the real financial feasibility and you take all the costs involved, even though they say they were profitable, they weren't profitable.
Well, they were profitable for someone. The question is who the someone is. And your point, Ben, which I thought was when we were in the green room, which is a really interesting evolutionary point, is that from a lender's perspective, it's now no longer enough to be able to say that I'm in there for a good price, because if the project gets in trouble because of the change in the regulatory world and the requirements that the federal regulators have placed on banks. So if you have a project, even if the project is money good, to use a street word, as you articulately said, that doesn't work for me as a lender because I'm being stuck having to reserve for it.
I will bring that out right now. There are 2 hotels that were built specifically or geared to the gay and lesbian population. One of them is paying their debt service without any problem. Another one is in trouble and it's going to auction next week, or it's going to auction. The regulator, both loans were made by a credit union. And the credit union is, and he says, my basis is so low. The regulator said, I don't care what your basis is. And this is an actual reality. And that's also, and I look at this in the hospitality market because you've built such a great brand in a company. There are people out there who believe that if they build a hotel, no matter where, in a mid-block location, it's going to do well. I mean, not every location. I mean, I look at Long Island City, which has some great potential maybe for residential, but you have 43 hotels in Long Island City all next to each other. If there's a blip in the market over there, you're going to have plenty of hotels available. I mean,
you're going to have the same market conditions. You're going to have good operators, bad operators. In tougher times, the bad operators will not do as well. And in general, if you get great location, you do a little better in good times. You're a little bit more protective in bad times. So I think those same market conditions exist.
We were also talking in the green room about, besides the cranes today, some of the cranes are no longer look for the union label on the cranes. There is more construction. I think Cranes recently wrote an article and a couple of the other publications talking about the amount of construction which is non-union. And Bruce was bringing up before the fact that many of these non-union were really places that have, perhaps we would say, two sides of the coin to the card. They have one card with the union bug and one card which is the non-union situation. And it's changed today. Some of the biggest projects in New York are non-union. How do you, as a banker, look at union versus non-union?
Look, I think the outgrowth of a lot of that has been because of the demand on construction. There's so many reason why we're here. There's so many projects going on. Even 2 years ago, we were hearing of general contractors that were turning down business because they had too much and they didn't want to, hire on new teams to do shoddy jobs. So they push business away.
One of our mutual friends, who was a GC, who is only building for himself today.
Exactly.
It's basically Douglas then says, hey, I'm not building for anyone else. I'm only going to build for myself.
Sure.
And there's been a decrease in the number of union shops. I mean, Plaza has had change of ownership, and there's a variety of situations. How do your clients, who are young guys who are in the market, how do they look at a deal? How do they focus at a deal with regard to construction costs, land costs, development costs? It's not somebody who's been around the market a couple of years. I don't want to age you, but
a lot of them are looking for. There's this whole talk of off-market deals, and you've dealt with this on a number of your
story
shows.
that I heard about value added.
Yeah.
I don't know. All of a sudden, everybody came up with value added.
But if you think about it,
every property is value added, right?
But if you think about it, when the market gets heated like this, and the cost per square foot of land rises, those deals that you looked at that looked so complicated, for example, a deal where there were family members feuding for years, or a deal where there's a lender and a borrower from 2007 still locked and have their horns locked. When you look at those deals, you may have passed over them before, but now they look a little different. Now it looks like you can unlock the value because it's worth taking the extra risk, spending the extra money. So some of the younger entrants in the market who are creative and including people who have been in the market for a while and really think through these problems and are very good at developing relationships with the family members or the people who own these assets, are unlocking value by getting themselves involved in these complicated deals, and then out comes something that's a little bit below the pressure point.
And that's a great point. I've talked to one of our developer clients who has done exactly that on 2 recent deals. He's been on your show, actually. So they're entering into these projects at very attractive basis, and these are types of things that we will finance. The people that are buying stuff on the market today and paying huge numbers, it's really difficult as a lender to sit there and make sense of it.
Generation families, or not families in the business, people who've had properties over there. They have, the biggest problem is transitioning the next generation of a family business, which I've done shows on that. And it is a difficult situation. Working with a successful developer who can figure out tax ways to change this really can help the deal, which allows on a true value added.
Sure.
But I think
there are tax considerations, but what's also there is now.
I got a 4th generation over here.
Exactly.
Working on the 5th.
Right.
But as the value of the prices go up, think about it from the perspective of the family who's trying to maybe address an internal issue. maybe the numbers didn't make sense once you sell the asset and distribute the income 2 years ago. But now we're talking about something different. Now it makes sense to sell.
It may sell, it may pay to sell, or it may pay to lease, which a number of people are saying,
Or it may pay to contribute the asset into a development joint venture with someone who has the skill set, a developer client.
Where are the opportunities for development? Because we see a lot of cranes in certain sections of Manhattan. We're seeing enormous amount of cranes in Brooklyn and Queens. Where do you see
Inflation.
Okay, where do you see?
I think there's still great value in New York City. We're in a global economy. There's a lot of unsuredness everywhere else in the world. People are safe with America. New York is still the hallmark location, and I think if you build quality,
do you see
people will come.
Potential? And I did a show recently with office brokers. Do you see potential in the Far West Side or near the Hudson Yards?
We still feel more comfortable in the tried and true areas.
Oh, you, Bruce?
Well, I think two things. I think your points about some form of value-added strategy. I think that there are deals that involve nonprofits. I think there are deals that involve, whether you call them tax structure deals, something where there is some perceived value-add strategy. The second thing is, I think that because Manhattan comes to your point about affordability, because $2,000 a foot seems to be the benchmark on new development, it is basically going to drive people to Brooklyn. So where I see opportunities for development, particularly for condos, particularly in the hot areas that people like, Williamsburg, the Greenpoint section of Brooklyn on the water, if you can figure out the transportation, and as the water taxis evolve, I think that it's going to be a combination of people that are displaced from Manhattan, displaced by $90 a foot rents and $2,500 a foot asking prices. And I think it's going to be in Manhattan if you can find a church, find a synagogue, do something where there's something where basically they don't have the money to do anything with the institution. It's going to be the same thing.
Michael, on the periphery, there's not that much of a savings once you factor in all the costs associated with construction.
But here's the question. Transit-oriented developments, Ben's been on my show, we've discussed this before, is the real key. If you're near a train, it's the big thing. But I just noticed on YIMBY that there was a site that Ruby Schroen bought next to Trump Plaza, okay? Great location on the train, right on the Coney Island, right next to the train, as opposed to the traditional Coney Island on Neptune Avenue.
How long is the commute from Coney Island?
The commute from this spot is 50 minutes to the city. 50 minutes minimum. But this is near the train, so it's only a 4-block walk, as opposed to most of Coney Island, where you get off the train in Stillwell Avenue and then you got to walk into Challenging. So, and that could be affordable because the land cost over there was probably in the $200 range. So, you could build certain affordability over there.
How many of those people are commuting to Manhattan, though?
I'd say...
Then you're 100%.
Yeah.
Okay, they are commuting to Manhattan. It's
you have to, if you're going to deal with affordability and you're going to deal with something that is where you're not talking about 2 days and 2 nights to get there, the best way that you're going to do that is to try to figure out campuses of nonprofits that have underutilized land where you can do a deal with the nonprofit for a 99-year lease for a very reasonable ground rent, and then go to the city of New York, to this mayor who has run on a platform of providing affordability and offer something that will allow them to do what they want, which is either 50, 30, 20 housing or 100% AMI-based housing. But it's got to be, because the city doesn't own any land, and by the time they get through upzoning it, we all will be Our children's children will be looking for this, and you'll have all of
Michael, we're making ours affordable because we're giving them their cake and eat it too. The people coming from overseas want to be in Midtown Manhattan. They don't want to take a commute, but then we run it out for them when they're not using it. So they cover their costs associated with the exorbitant costs of being in Midtown Manhattan. So they're having their cake and eat it too. When they are here, they have the location. When they're not here, we're running it, and they get all of that rent.
Any thoughts about the suburbs, the tertiary markets?
Well, I see that there's more and more focus on Westchester, on investing in communities north of the city where you have this strength of Metro North. People can get into the city, or people who want to live in the city can get out to these various markets.
Now, what's very interesting is, Matt Calley, who's owned more terrible offices in Westchester, has gone to the community boards, whatever they call it in Westchester, it's not community boards, to get the zoning changed to convert some of these office buildings.
Vacancy rate's still in the 20s.
In White Plains.
Yeah.
In White Plains, so it's being done. So that's that's a rezoning or whatever you want, but it's creating the housing that's needed, which are near the trains, not too far away. And
we owned a third of that Matt Calley one, so 2 of them were offices. We were the residential, and just recently sold that, and it's right next to the train, across from the mall that they were going to do inside out in White Plains. That was our first AK, unofficial AK. It was right there with.
So that was a hotel?
It was furnished apartments.
And more of this is welcomed by the municipalities because you're bringing in a tax base, you're bringing in shoppers, you're bringing in people who are going to revitalize a downtown that may have otherwise experienced blight. And more we're seeing, we're involved in deals in sort of the middle part of Westchester and New Rochelle. More and more of development is happening, and Yonkers has seen tremendous growth.
What about New Jersey?
We're building in Hoboken a property with Rockefeller, as well as right next to the Jets facility. So we're doing 2 properties under our AV portfolio. And it's also bringing in great jobs. I think I'm not going to repeat the company, but there's a large multinational company coming in there also. So it's bringing jobs, it's bringing
Hoboken,
residential.
Jersey City. Look,
we have a lot of exposure
I think in summation, there are some very good things. The whole question, as Bruce and everyone else has brought up, there's a question of how high can the prices that you can make these deals. And everything is truly predicated, that the crystal apple says, we better make sure the economy stays good, okay? Because it's nice that the price of oil is going down, but if the euro drops, a lot of our visitors to the Big Apple and buyers may have a change. I'd like to thank Bruce, Larry, Brian, and Ben, and I'll see you next week.